Hey! This is Mr. Poddable. In this episode, Jack's desperation drives him to execute a high-stakes cybercrime, but the deadly game he's entered is just beginning. The night was dark, but my thoughts were darker. Emily's betrayal had torn something inside me, leaving a gaping wound that no amount of reasoning could heal. The time for passive observation had passed. I needed to take action, to regain control not just of my life, but of hers as well. If she wanted to play games with fire, she'd soon find out that I could light the match. I spent the next few days meticulously planning my move. This wasn't going to be a simple hack, it was going to be an intricate web of deception that would pull her down while keeping me untouched. The key to it all was in her devices, her phone, her laptop, where she lived her life, hid her secrets, and communicated with that man who had betrayed her. But first, I needed to get closer. My first step was a subtle one: rekindle the connection between us just enough that she would lower her defenses. I started small, casually mentioning tech problems I was having at work, leading into a conversation about cybersecurity. Emily had always been intrigued by my knowledge in this area, and soon, she was asking questions, genuinely interested in what I had to say. One night, while we were out for drinks, I offered to take a look at her phone, an innocent gesture. "You never know who might be watching," I said with a smile. She laughed, but I could see the unease in her eyes. She handed me her phone, and I made a show of scrolling through it, pretending to find potential vulnerabilities. Little did she know, I'd already planted the seeds of my plan weeks ago. The real work began the next night. Using the password cracking script I developed, I gained access to her phone within hours. I knew her habits well enough to predict her passwords, and soon, I was inside. From there, I installed the RAT, Remote Access Trojan, on both her phone and laptop. This software would allow me to monitor her every move, intercepting messages, emails, and even controlling her camera and microphone. The RAT was well hidden, buried deep within her system files and disguised as a routine software update. Even if she ran a virus scan, it would come up clean. As I watched the code take root, a sense of power surged through me. This wasn't just about watching her, it was about controlling her, manipulating her reality without her ever knowing. With the RAT in place, I began to infiltrate every aspect of her life. I started small, reading her texts and emails, learning her routines. I knew when she would be alone, when she would be meeting that man, and what they were planning. But I didn't stop there. I needed to manipulate the narrative, to make her feel like the walls were closing in on her. I altered her financial records, making it look like she was involved in shady transactions. I created fake emails from her bank, suggesting that she was being investigated for fraud. I even sent her a few anonymous texts, hinting that someone was onto her. Each move was calculated to increase her paranoia, to make her feel like she was losing control. One of my most daring moves was to alter a crucial email from her boss. I intercepted it, changed a few lines, and sent it back through the usual channels. The email now hinted at a compliance investigation, nothing concrete, just enough to plant the seed of doubt in her mind. When she read it, I watched through her webcam as her face turned pale. She immediately picked up her phone to call the man, her voice shaking as she asked if he had received a similar message. He hadn't, of course, and that only deepened her anxiety. Days passed, and Emily's paranoia grew. She started to act differently around me, more guarded, more distant. But she still hadn't figured it out. Not yet. One evening, as I was watching her through the webcam, she received a call from the man. She answered it, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think something's wrong," she said, her eyes darting around the room. "I'm getting these weird emails, texts. I don't know what's happening, but it feels like someone's watching me." The man tried to reassure her, but I could see that he was worried too. He suggested they meet in person to discuss it, and she reluctantly agreed. As soon as the call ended, she closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. I could almost feel the fear radiating from her. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I sent her a message from an anonymous number: "I know what you've been doing. It's only a matter of time before everyone else knows too." When she saw the message, she jumped, her hands trembling as she read it over and over. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to figure out who could be behind it. She quickly typed a reply, but I didn't respond. Instead, I watched as she paced the room, her anxiety growing by the second. The next day, I escalated my plan. While Emily was at work, I activated the RAT's camera and microphone, capturing every conversation she had. I could see the tension in her face, the way she flinched every time her phone buzzed with a new message. She was on edge, and it was only a matter of time before she broke. That afternoon, She called the man again, her voice shaking as she told him about the message she had received. "I don't know who it is, but they know everything," she said, her eyes wide with fear. I think I'm being hacked." The man tried to calm her down, but I could see that he was just as nervous. He suggested they lay low for a while, avoid using their phones and laptops until they could figure out what was going on. But Emily wasn't convinced. "What if it's already too late?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "What if they've already seen everything?" As she hung up the phone, I could see the realization dawning on her. She knew she was being watched, but she didn't know by whom. She started to search her laptop, running virus scans, checking her files, trying to find any sign of the rat. But I had hidden it well, and she found nothing. That evening, she called me, her voice strained as she asked if I could come over. "I just need someone to talk to," she said, her words heavy with unspoken fear. When I arrived, she was a mess, her hair disheveled, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say much at first, just handed me her laptop and asked if I could take a look at it. "I think I've been hacked," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I played along, pretending to run scans and check her files. "It looks clean," I said after a while, handing it back to her. "But if you think something's wrong, you should be careful. Change your passwords, keep an eye on your accounts." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She knew something was wrong, but she couldn't prove it. And that was exactly where I wanted her. As I left her apartment that night, I felt a sense of triumph. Everything was going according to plan. But as I drove home, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message from an unknown number. "You think you're safe. But I know what you did, Jack. And I'm coming for you." My heart skipped a beat. I quickly tried to trace the number, but it was untraceable, a burner phone. My mind raced, trying to figure out who could have sent it. Was it Emily? The man? Or someone else entirely? The message was clear, someone knew about my plan. And they were coming for me. Over the next few days, the tension in the office grew unbearable. The compliance team was in full swing, investigating every aspect of Emily's life. She was called in for questioning several times, each session leaving her more rattled than the last. The evidence I had planted was airtight, there was no way she could talk her way out of it. But the message I had received lingered in the back of my mind. Whoever sent it knew what I had done, and they were playing their own game. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that every move I made was being scrutinized by unseen eyes. One evening, as I was reviewing the footage from Emily's webcam, I noticed something strange. She wasn't alone. The man was there, sitting across from her, his face tense as they whispered to each other. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the urgency in their voices was clear. Then, without warning, the screen went black. The connection had been severed. Panic set in as I tried to re-establish the connection, but it was no use. They had discovered the rat, and they had shut it down. My phone buzzed again, a new message from the same unknown number. "Did you really think you could get away with it?" A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I realized the gravity of the situation. The tables had turned, and I was no longer in control. Someone else was pulling the strings, and they were coming for me. I had to act fast. I started erasing all traces of the rat from my own devices, covering my tracks as best I could. But the feeling of dread wouldn't go away. No matter what I did, I knew it was only a matter of time before they caught up with me. The final scene. As I sat in my apartment, staring at the screen, my mind raced with possibilities. Who could have found out? Was it Emily? The man? Or someone else entirely? The more I thought about it, the more paranoid I became. Then, just as I was about to shut down my laptop, my phone rang. It was a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the answer button. Whoever it was, they were getting closer. But I couldn't ignore it. Not now. I answered the call, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello?" There was a brief silence on the other end, followed by a low, menacing voice. "I warned you, Jack. Now it's your turn to play." The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, my mind racing. Whoever it was, they were serious. And they were coming for me. The game was no longer in my control. I had started it, but now, someone else was finishing it. And I had no idea how it would end. As the realization sank in, a chill ran down my spine. The thrill of victory had turned into a deadly game of cat and mouse, and I was no longer the hunter, I was the prey. The next chapter in this story will bring more twists, more suspense, and a confrontation that could change everything. Jack's world is unraveling, and the truth is closer than ever. But will he survive long enough to see it? Stay tuned for a heart-pounding chapter that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The stakes have never been higher, and the next move could be Jack's last. Thanks for listening, stay curious, stay awesome, and as always, keep it Poddable. See you in the next episode.